Fish exist in an astonishing army of diversity. From killer sharks to strange glowing monstrosities, few things fill us with wonder like the sheer incredibleness of our ocean's inhabitants. According to modern science, there are currently approximately 33,600 recognized species of fish. This number is constantly changing as hundreds of new species are discovered each year. The truth is that the oceans are so vast and deep that despite all our research, most of the marine world lies shrouded in mystery. It would be complete hubris for a human being to make a broad generalization about all marine life. Yet, over 2,000 years ago, our sages revealed a remarkable fact. All fish that have scales also have fins. This incredible claim about the nature of all marine life is especially remarkable when considering that in the ancient, Near East fishermen were bound by crude fishing implements, mostly basic nets, spears, and hooks, and they were only exposed to a small number of fish species living in their area. People certainly knew nothing of the thousands of freshwater fish in African rivers, or the strange and translucent fish of the deep ocean. Yet still, our sages were confident enough to say that any fish with scales must have fins. Since this statement was written thousands of years ago, ichthyologists have not found a single species of fish that possesses scales without fins. Not one. Of one of the estimated 3.5 trillion fish swimming in the sea, we have not encountered a single fish that has scales but no fins. Our sages could have only made such a statement if they had access to divine knowledge.
The night sky glimmers with stars, but how many stars are there in the universe? Without the aid of telescopes, only 6,000 stars are visible to the naked eye. Ptolemy, in his Almagest, writes that the sky contains 1,022 stars. This was the standard number, accepted by the Greeks and adopted by Arab scholars. This number was later updated by the astronomer Tycho Brahe in 1598, who reduced the number to 965 stars. This was later changed by Johannes Hevelius in 1687, who wrote in his Catalogus Stellarum Fixarum that the sky contained 1,564 stars. All of these scholars are obviously wrong. There are trillions and trillions of stars in the night sky. This fact was utterly unknown to mankind until the advent of the modern telescope. Yet remarkably, this reality is recorded explicitly by our sages. The Talmud states that God laid out the order and makeup of the cosmos using the metaphor of an army. My daughter, I created 12 constellations in the firmament, and for every constellation I created 30 armies, and for every army I created 30 legions, and for each legion I created 30 infantry leaders, and for every infantry leader I created 30 military leaders, and for every military leader I created 30 leaders of forts, and on every leader of a fort I have hung 365,000 stars. Multiply 12 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 365,000, and you get just around 10 to the power of 18 stars. That's 100,000 trillion, or 1 quintillion stars. So how many stars are there, actually? Astonishingly, modern astronomers put the estimated number of stars at just around 10 to the 18th power. Imagine, for almost all of recorded history, people believed that there were few more than 1,000 stars in the sky. Yet our sages understood the sheer enormity of the cosmos. Such a radical departure by our sages from the greatest astronomers of the time points to a higher level of knowledge than is available to the mere senses.
When standing on any spot on Earth, our planet appears to the naked eye like a flat plane that extends in all directions. Intuitively, the world feels flat, and for much of humanity's history, we had no idea that we were living on a globe. Most ancient cultures ascribed to a flat Earth cosmography, and this was the accepted model of the Greeks until the classical period. Most other civilizations, including China and India, clung to the concept of a flat Earth until much later. According to Egyptian and Mesopotamian cosmological thought, the world was a massive disk floating in the ocean. Hindu mythology believes that the world is supported on the backs of 7 massive elephants who stand on the shell of an enormous tortoise. Obviously, this is all foolish. Amazingly, long before civilizations had any inkling of the actual shape of the world, our sages correctly understood the spherical nature of the world. The Zohar brings an ancient tradition which states unambiguously, "The whole world revolves in a little circle like a ball. Some are on top and some are on the bottom, and the people in different places have different appearances from each other due to environmental differences." Such a knowledge, so far ahead of most of the civilized world, points to a higher source of understanding.
Standing at 488 meters long and 60 meters high, the Western Wall is a massive and grand edifice. Our last remaining structure on the Temple Mount from the era of the Second Temple, the Western Wall has become a symbol of our hope for the ultimate redemption. Yet, as the prime symbol of the Jews, one would imagine that the Western Wall would have been destroyed long ago. So, why does the Western Wall still stand today? The key to understanding this mystery lies in a cryptic verse in the Song of Songs that refers to God standing behind a wall. Over 2,000 years ago, our sages revealed that hidden in this verse is an astonishing prophecy. My beloved is like a gazelle, or like a young stag. There he stands behind our wall, gazing through the window, peering through the lattice. Says our sages, this wall is referring to the western wall of the temple, which will never be destroyed, for the divine presence is in the west. Let us consider this claim for a moment. During its long history, Jerusalem has been attacked 52 times by invading armies, captured 44 times, and destroyed twice. It was ravaged by the Arab Caliphate in 638 CE, then again in 1071 by Turkish warlords, then again in 1098 by the Vizier el-Afdal. During the Crusades, Jerusalem was captured by the Christian Empire, only to return to Muslim hands by Saladin in 1187. This sort of besiegement and conquest over Jerusalem continued mostly unabated for hundreds of years, until the Ottoman Empire, led by Suleiman the Magnificent, decisively captured Jerusalem in 1517. Many of these conquests involved razing significant portions of Jerusalem to the ground. Yet, through all this, the Western Wall remained untouched. The Western Wall stands at the center of one of the most contested areas in human civilization, a symbol of the most hated people in history, yet it has stood proudly for thousands of years, a testament to God's promise not to abandon his nation. How could a mortal man confidently declare that the Western Wall will stand forever? What person would gamble on the Western Wall surviving dozens of sieges and armies? It is obvious that a divine force is at work.
One of the hallmarks of Jewish law is its extreme sensitivity to the pain of others. Our mandate to minimize suffering extends even to animals, and we are forbidden from causing any creature unnecessary pain. This idea is evidenced in the Jewish laws regarding the kosher slaughter of animals for food. Every year, over 60 billion chickens and over 4 billion farm animals are killed worldwide to satisfy humanity's need for protein. Methods of slaughter vary around the world, from asphyxiation with nitrogen gas to stunning with a captive bolt pistol and the cutting of the chest by the heart. Jewish law commands that an animal's throat be slit with a sharp knife in one quick movement. For many years, various governmental bodies around the world have tried to outlaw or ban Jewish slaughter with the claim that it caused animals to suffer needlessly. A closer look at animal physiology reveals not only the humane nature of kosher slaughter, but the astonishing divine wisdom encoded in Jewish law. All mammals have two main arteries carrying blood back and forth from the brain: the carotid artery in the front of the neck and the vertebral artery located in the back of the neck. When an animal's neck is slit with a knife, the carotid artery is severed, but the vertebral artery remains intact. This means that blood will continue flowing towards the animal's brain, keeping it conscious and in pain for a long time until it bleeds out. This is inhumane and an unacceptable way to process animals for food. Remarkably, out of the entire animal kingdom, kosher animals, and only kosher animals, possess a unique physiological trait. The circulatory system of kosher animals are designed in such a way that both the carotid artery and the vertebral arteries are located at the front of the neck. During kosher slaughtering, both veins are cut, immediately removing all blood supply from the animal's brain. This induces unconsciousness and leads to a singularly painless and humane death. How could human farmers living thousands of years ago have possibly known that? Of all the animals in the entire planet, only kosher animals have this unique physiological makeup. Such an unparalleled knowledge of our world points to a master planner and creator as the source of our laws.
The story of the Jews is one of the most astonishing and improbable tales ever told. The survival of the Jews from ancient times until today defies all historical precedent. When our nation was young, we were a small kingdom with vastly different values and beliefs than our surrounding neighbors. In a world that believed in a wild and corrupt pantheon of God, each nation clinging to their patron deity, the Jews were the first to introduce the concept of the one supreme God of all creation. This idea was so revolutionary. God was not a corporal, vindictive tyrant. Instead, he is the benevolent, omnipresent source of all reality who had created this world to bestow goodness onto humanity. With this truth, the Jews brought a moral code of law that is without parallel in any other civilization in history. We were different and outcast to the rest of the world, yet we still clung to our faith. Then, with the destruction of the temple, we were sent into exile. Every other nation in history that has lost their homeland has eventually disappeared, their remnant only visible inside the forgotten books of history. But the Jews persevered despite the exile. We survived the Babylonian exile, where the king Nebuchadnezzar tried to force us to bow to his idols. We survived the genocidal attempts of the Amalekites to wipe us from the face of the earth during the Persian exile. We survived when, 2,000 years ago, the Romans carted all our men off to be sold as slaves or killed for sport in the gladiator ring. Not only did we survive, we flourished. After the Romans razed the Second Temple to the ground, the Jews spread across the world, establishing communities in Europe, China, and the Arabian Peninsula. We flourished wherever we landed, yet we never assimilated. We remained distinct, and despite intense persecution, never compromised our divine mandate. Our unique role angered those around us, and the Jews had to endure punishing crusades, inquisitions, and discrimination by Christians and Muslims alike. Throughout history, Jews have been barred from most businesses, forbidden from owning land, and subject to oppressive taxation. In Europe, this simmering cauldron of anti-Semitism eventually bubbled over into the darkest period of human history, the Holocaust. From 1939 to 1945, Jews across Europe were hunted, tortured, and killed by the millions, all while the world watched silently. Families tried to flee, but the world closed its borders, condemning millions of Jews to die at the hands of the Nazis. But against all the odds, the Jewish nation survived. We rebuilt our homeland and established strong communities around the world. Whether it's a Yemenite Jew who survived 40 generations of mistreatment by his neighbors, or a Polish Jew whose ancestors died rather than kissing the cross, we survived. There is no natural explanation for the survival of the Jews. It is a singular event in history and defies all attempts at naturalistic explanations. There is only one reasonable explanation. God promised Abraham that he would establish an eternal covenant with his descendants. All the events in Jewish history are foretold in the Bible and the prophets, from our exile to our eventual return to our homeland and the ultimate redemption. Our very survival is the most enduring testament to the unique nature of the Jewish people.
Truth is elusive and precious. Over the millennia, many religions have risen up claiming to be the guardians of ultimate truth. But when one turns back the clock and explores the origins of the world's religions, a startling fact emerges. Experience tells us that it is foolish to trust the testimony of a single man claiming to have experienced a private revelation. Over the ages, millions of people have been duped by charlatans claiming to possess the secrets of reality. But how did the world's religions begin? They all began with a single man claiming access to a higher dimension. Islam has 1.6 billion followers. Yet Islam began with a single illiterate man claiming to have ascended to heaven and experienced a divine revelation. Christianity has an astonishing 2.2 billion adherents, but it also is founded on the testimony of a tiny number of people. Buddhism, too, began with a single man who claimed to have found the truth. No religion claims that God revealed himself to an entire nation except Judaism. How is it possible that of the thousands of religions that ever existed, not a single one claims that God publicly revealed himself? The answer is that while the human mind is capable of being fooled, a lie of such proportions is impossible to fabricate. It is simply impossible to fool an entire nation into believing that they experienced a divine encounter. The Bible tells us that God appeared at Mount Sinai in front of the entire Jewish nation. Over 2 million people witnessed Moses speaking directly with God. Those millions of people passed on the story of their remarkable encounter with their children. Those children grew old and passed on the tradition to their children. And those children passed on the story to their children until today. This ironclad chain of transmission has continued uninterrupted for 3,300 years. You are the next link in this chain. This is the remarkable heritage of every Jew. If the statistics are right, the Jew constitutes but 0.25% of the human race. It suggests a nebulous puff of stardust lost in the blaze of the Milky Way. Properly, the Jew ought hardly to be heard of. But he is heard of, has always been heard of. He is as prominent on the planet as any other people, and his importance is extravagantly out of proportion to the smallness of his bulk. His contributions to the world's list of great names in literature, science, art, music, finance, medicine, and abstruse learning are also very out of proportion to the weakness of his numbers. He has made a marvelous fight in this world in all ages, and has done it with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain of himself and be excused for it. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the Persians rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greeks and Romans followed and made a vast noise, and they were gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight now, and have vanished. The Jew saw them all, survived them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert but aggressive mind. All things are mortal but the Jews. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?